On the phone, it's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Glenn Greenwald. Of course, he is a writer at Salon.com, author of several best-selling New York Times bestsellers, his latest, With Liberty and Justice for Some. Welcome to the program, Glenn.
Great to be back, Sam.
I think the favorite part of this story, and I want to talk, obviously, about the recent book that's come out, capitalizing on the destruction of evidence by Jose Rodriguez. And I also want to talk about Philip Zekalow's memo that came out a couple of weeks ago that seemed to get very little attention. But in the story about the book Hard Measures by Jose Rodriguez, you talked about perhaps including this story in your book, but you just thought there's just no chance this guy's going to get away with it. Back it up and tell us a little bit about this.
Well, basically, Jose Rodriguez came to public attention in 2007 when the New York Times revealed that at the time they thought 2 videotapes that were in the CIA's possession that showed interrogations of Al-Qaeda suspects had been destroyed on the orders of Jose Rodriguez, who was the director of essentially the covert unit of the CIA. It turned out that actually 92 videotapes that were in the CIA's possession had been destroyed on his orders, and they showed interrogations. They videoed interrogations of a variety of Al-Qaeda suspects, including many who we now know were waterboarded and subjected to other forms of torture. And what made that revelation so significant was that at the time that he ordered those videotapes destroyed, there were multiple court orders that had instructed the CIA to preserve any and all evidence relating to CIA interrogation. Some of these courts were investigating the causes of 9/11. Others were investigating claims that the CIA had tortured people. And so any videotapes that existed of interrogations were highly relevant to these judicial proceedings. And so multiple federal courts had ordered that the CIA preserve these videotapes and produce them, turn them over. And the 9/11 Commission did the same. The 9/11 Commission investigated what happened with 9/11. Obviously, one of the very first pieces of evidence they were interested in was any interrogations of people who had knowledge of 9/11. And they also ordered, using their binding subpoena power, the CIA to preserve and disclose any videotape showing interrogations of Al-Qaeda suspects or people with knowledge of 9/11. And so by ordering these videotapes destroyed, Jose Rodriguez, violated numerous court orders, and as even the chairman of the 9/11 Commission put it, obstructed the investigation of the 9/11 Commission. And that act of violating court orders and obstructing formal judicial and other forms of government investigations are very serious felonies. It's obstruction of justice, it's contempt of court, for which many, many people are in prison. And the Obama Justice Department, actually the Bush Justice Department, appointed a special prosecutor to determine whether crimes had been committed. And then under the Obama Justice Department, that investigation was closed, and the announcement was made that there would be no charges brought against Jose Rodriguez, which is why he's now free to write this book and tour the country and make a lot of money defending not only the torture policies that the CIA used, but also his decision to destroy this evidence.
I mean, this is really stunning. And I mentioned that you had mentioned in one of the pieces you written that you contemplated putting it in your book about how there is sort of an elite picking and choosing as to who is going to pay for their crimes. And you thought, chances are this guy's going to have to face some type of penalty, and he got none.
Right. Actually, what happened was I was talking to my editor when I was writing the book, and the argument of my book, as you just said, was that political elites, when they get caught committing crimes, don't end up being indicted or held criminally accountable. And I actually thought, when I was writing the book, that this was going to be a case that undercut that thesis, that because of how glaring the crimes were in this case, and because people like Tom Kaine and Lee Hamilton, the chairman of the 9/11 Commission, were angry about what had happened because other elites were angry, that this would actually be a case where Jose Rodriguez would get indicted, and I would have to basically treat this as an exception to the thesis that I was arguing. I was sure that it was going to undercut the book, and yet before I finished the book, the Justice Department announced that, in fact, Jose Rodriguez would not be charged with any crimes in connection with the destruction of these videos, nor would anybody else involved in the destruction of this evidence. And so I actually put a little passage in the book saying, even in this case, where even I, one of the most cynical people on the planet when it comes to these things, thought that he would be indicted because it was just too glaring, even for our totally corrupt political culture, not to indict him. Even in the case this extreme and obvious, they end up shielding people who commit crimes as part of the government.
To your knowledge, has any of the people involved in this investigation, have any of those people who publicly decried the fact that the CIA had destroyed these tapes, and have they come out and said anything about the lack of prosecution in this instance?
I don't really know anybody who actually has objected to the fact that Jose Rodriguez or anybody else involved in the destruction of these videotapes has been shielded from prosecution. And one interesting thing, there's actually the New York Times, when they reported on it in the first couple months, actually said that there were people in the White House, the highest levels, who had been consulted about the destruction of these videotapes, and some were even encouraging that they be destroyed. And Jose Rodriguez himself says the reason he finally ordered the videotapes to be destroyed is because he couldn't get an answer one way or the other from the White House definitively about whether they should be destroyed. And he took that to mean that they basically wanted him to destroy these videotapes, but didn't want to have their fingerprints on it and let him go and do it. So an investigation would have explored necessarily that question as well. He would have undoubtedly claimed that he had encouragement from the highest levels of the Bush Department, the Bush White House, and the Justice Department to destroy the videotapes. And so it would have potentially incriminated a whole slew of other officials. And that's the reason I think the Justice Department stayed away. Just one interesting note on this. Jose Rodriguez was interviewed last night on 60 Minutes about his book. And 60 Minutes, of course, is owned by the CBS Corporation, which also owns Simon & Schuster, which is the publishing company that is publishing Jose Rodriguez's book. So CBS is profiting off this defense of torture and other crimes.
I'm sure that's a coincidence.
Total coincidence, obviously. I don't mean at all to suggest any causal connection there. And Dianne Feinstein, who, of course, is the Democratic chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, issued a statement responding to Jose Rodriguez's interview. And she said, she's angry about the defense of torture, but she also said, quote, his decision to order the destruction of the tapes was in violation of instructions from CIA and White House lawyers and illustrates a blatant disregard for the law. So, Washington elites constantly say that here is an example of flagrant criminality. And yet the idea that he should have been indicted for what Dianne Feinstein calls a blatant disregard for the law is something that never gets mentioned.
Do you buy that? Do you buy that he only got a non-answer from the White House? In other words, what's to prevent him from saying that when in fact he got some winks and some nudges and said, we're going to make sure things internally that you're protected this way. You make sure that we're protected externally, and we'll call it a day.
Well, that's what's so interesting is the New York Times in its early reporting actually said that they had sources which had very clearly told them that senior White House officials had approved of the destruction of the videotapes. And, the history of the Bush administration has been that they commit acts that are against the law and are very adept at doing it in a way that gives them legal cover. And so that's typically how things have happened is, the idea that some mid-level official like Jose Rodriguez or upper to mid-level official like Jose Rodriguez would have on his own simply ordered these videotapes destroyed unless he had the approval, implicit or otherwise, as you say, of top administration officials, it's really strange credulity. I mean, this is a lifelong bureaucrat. And the CIA, and he actually talked about this in his book and in his interview, the CIA, with everything they were doing in the war on terror, was obsessed with making sure that they weren't hung out to dry. So when they, were going to go torture people, that was why they were so insistent that before they did that, they got very detailed approvals from the Justice Department, because they knew that if at some point torture became controversial and they didn't have all these documents approving of it, that they would be essentially the scapegoats. And people would say, oh, look, the CIA broke the law, and we, the political officials, would never have approved of this and didn't even know about it. And so that was very much their mentality. They didn't do anything controversial without getting clear approval from the political branches. And so I absolutely believe Jose Rodriguez when he says that he was getting clear indications that this was something that he should have done.
And to a certain extent, I mean, this is just a replay of Ollie North in some respects, right? We have a rogue guy who has gone out on his own. Nobody seems to remember telling him what to do, and there's really no way to hold him accountable.
Right. I mean, John Poindexter famously called that plausible deniability, making sure that when you instruct mid-level officials who follow orders to break the law, that you give them the approval that they need in their own minds, but make certain that you're not actually formally tied to it. This is the game that Washington has been playing for a long time in order to break the law with impunity. And I think what would have happened had Jose Rodriguez been indicted, the first thing that he would have done would have been to say, I was told to do this by Justice Department officials and White House officials. And it would have sucked in the entire political apparatus of the executive branch and incriminated them in very serious ways. And the Obama Justice Department has proven over and over and over that the one thing it wants to avoid desperately is any criminal investigation that implicates high-ranking political officials. And that seems to be the reason they stayed as far away from possible from indicting Jose Rodriguez.
And this is also, we saw earlier this month, I just want to turn to this. We saw earlier this month a memo, I guess it was, documents showing that the State Department counselor, Philip Zelikow, who was very closely associated with Condoleezza Rice at that time, and I think even prior, that he had also argued that torture was a problem. There's been virtually no coverage, no implications to any of these documents.
Well, one of the most important political consensus to have formed in the past 3 or 4 years, and by political consensus I mean the opinion of pretty much all members of the establishment media, with almost no exceptions, as well as the leadership of both political parties, has been that there should be no investigations, criminal investigations of Bush-era crimes, including torture. And the argument that has been made, the principal argument that was made to justify that belief, is that the people who did the torturing, namely the high-level political officials who authorized it, like Condoleezza Rice and John Ashcroft and Colin Powell and George Bush and Dick Cheney, had believed in good faith that what they were ordering was legal because they were told it was legal by the Justice Department. And that similarly, the people who did the torturing, the physical doing of the torturing, the CIA agents, were also told by the Justice Department that it was legal and were instructed to do it by their political superiors. Now, the reason why that has never been a persuasive argument is because the reality of what happened is that they knew that it was illegal and simply wanted those Justice Department memos in order to cover up, in order to provide them with the permission slip in order to do it. It wasn't like they set out to get in good faith, a legal understanding of what the limits were on what they could do, got it, and then complied. No, they knew they wanted to torture and knew they needed Justice Department memos in order to do it. And as long as they got a stamp of approval from the Justice Department for things that everyone knew was illegal, they felt like they would be protected. And what, these isolated instances where people within the administration are saying, look, these things that you're authorizing are actually illegal. And one of the ways that we know that it's illegal is that we ourselves, the U.S. government, have always said it's illegal when other people have done it. We've prosecuted other countries for doing it. We've prosecuted leaders for doing it. The international tribunals have prosecuted people for doing it. The reason why that's so damning to this Washington consensus is because it shows that even people in the government knew that what they were doing was illegal. They didn't think they were doing something legal, and it just proved in good faith that they were wrong. They knew full well that it was illegal, and this Zelikow memo, like others where people in the government were saying what you're doing is illegal, really give the lie to that central claim from the Democratic and Republican parties and the Washington media that prosecutions are unwarranted because they believed in good faith that what they were doing was legal and had no idea that it was against the law.
Now, there were reports. I think maybe it was also late in September of 2011 of a talk that a member of the transition team gave Berkeley Law School Dean Christopher Edley Jr., who basically said at this forum, and I guess he followed up supposedly via email to a reporter, Andrew Krieg at the justiceintegrity.org, that the one of the reasons why the Obama administration just didn't pursue it was not just because of this notion of politically speaking, people wanted to turn the page and whatnot, but there was a genuine fear that there would be some type of scary pushback from the CIA, from I guess other elements of our defense or as you will apparatus.
Right. Well, I have no idea whether that's true or not. You can look at it in two different ways. You can look at it as a kind of retroactive excuse for why there weren't prosecutions. Well, there would have been this, I think he called it a coup from within the intelligence and defense, worlds. You could alternatively look at it and say, that's a reasonable fear. Remember, 60 years ago, Dwight Eisenhower warned that, the military-industrial complex was getting more powerful than even democratically elected officials. That was, 5 decades ago, and it's gotten vastly worse on pretty much every level since then. And so the idea that, the CIA and the permanent, military class in Washington has serious weapons that they can use against even political officials who are, at the highest rung of the ladder, like the president, is totally reasonable and probably true. But, if you run for president of the United States and you take the oath where you put your hand on, the Bible and swear that you will protect and defend the Constitution, you have the obligation, because the Constitution compels you to faithfully execute the law, to fulfill that oath. And if you're too afraid of what the CIA is going to do to you or what the Defense Department is going to do to you, then anybody who thinks that way has no business being president. And so, I have no idea whether that was a legitimate, whether they truly had that fear or not. But what I do know is that if they decided to accommodate that fear, which meant shielding some of the country's most egregious criminals. Remember, torture has long been held to be one of the most egregious crimes anyone can commit from criminal accountability. Then that's to their eternal shame and disgrace. That reflects very, very poorly on their character and their ability to lead.
Is there any opportunity for a guy starting with just the most obvious target, at least right now, a guy like Jose Rodriguez, to be charged, investigated down the road? I mean, is there some type of statute of limitations, or is it he's just this confident because he just sees that there's just no way this DOJ is going to do anything about it, regardless of who is president in come this election, that their DOJ is not going to do anything about it. There's nothing that state AGs or district attorneys can do. This guy must feel pretty confident that there's no point in him not making money off of this at this point.
Right. I mean, can you blame him? I mean, in the past 4 years, there has not been a single Bush official criminally investigated for any of the rampant. I mean, they got caught eavesdropping on the American public in violation of one of the clearest laws you could possibly ever find, which was FISA, that said it is a criminal offense punishable by up to 10 years in prison, 5 years in prison, and a $10,000 fine to eavesdrop on the communications of any American citizen without getting a warrant from the FISA court. They got caught red-handed doing that. Not a single investigation other than the person who blew the whistle on the program, right. Thomas Tam. He was the only one who was investigated. You have a torture regime where George Bush and Dick Cheney go around the country writing books and making tons of money, proudly defending and boasting about the fact that they authorized torture. Not a single investigation from any of that. Alberto Gonzales repeatedly lied to Congress and in so many other ways, which is also a felony for which people have gone to prison. No investigations. And then you have the Obama Justice Department saying that they are closing the books on the Jose Rodriguez inquiry. And so if even the Obama administration isn't going to investigate Jose Rodriguez, why would you have any fear if you're him that you'll ever be investigated? Yes, there is a statute of limitations, but even more comfortingly, if you're him, our political class and our establishment media have proven beyond a doubt that one of their highest religious beliefs is that there should be no criminal investigations for any of these matters. And so, if I were him, that's the last thing I'd be worried about.
Yet there's every reason to believe that if there was someone in Jose Rodriguez's office who had been a witness to this destruction of these tapes and had gone to the New York Times or gone to had gone to Glenn Greenwald and become a source for such story, there's every reason to believe that person would be facing criminal charges right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think that of all the things that the Obama administration has done, this is probably one of the worst, which is the Orwellian mantra that was invoked, the slogan to justify shielding Bush officials from any criminal accountability has been look forward, not backward. We need to look forward as a nation, not backward. And yet at the very same time, the very same administration who peddled that phrase repeatedly has waged this vicious and truly unprecedented war on whistleblowers, including people who have exposed government corruption 8, 9, 10 years ago, people whom the Bush administration decided even that they weren't going to indict. The Obama administration has become obsessed with prosecuting people who expose government corruption and wrongdoing. So it isn't just that they've shielded high-level officials who commit crimes. It's that they, at the same time, are vehemently prosecuting the people who expose those very same crimes. I mean, they tried to put Thomas Drake, rather, the NSA official who exposed illegal government eavesdropping. They tried to put him in prison for decades, if not life, by prosecuting him under very dubious espionage charges that fell apart. And you're absolutely right. If you commit torture and other high-level crimes, you can be certain you'll be protected by the Obama administration. But if you expose those crimes, you can be certain that you're going to be prosecuted.
Do you think there? I mean, I find myself not even starting with this base point, but there was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, where we really perceived the Department of Justice as its independence from the rest of the administration being crucial to its capacity to do a job. This was going back during the Nixon era. When I went to law school, they had farmed out from Harvard the retired professors, and Archibald Cox was teaching there. And he, of course, was a Department of Justice official who refused to go along with the president's cover-up. There was a notion that the head of the DOJ was supposed to be independent from the rest of the administration. Am I mistaken, or does it seem like that's not even a factor in the way that these things are discussed? I mean, if President Obama is basically saying we need to turn the page, isn't the implication there that he's instructed the Department of Justice to turn the page and that the Department of Justice has no independence? Or is it simply we just now take that for granted?
Yeah, this was a point that really got obscured during that entire debate over whether there should be investigations. It wasn't just that President Obama was telling the Justice Department that he thought they should look forward, not backwards, that there should be no investigations. Rahm Emanuel went on ABC News and decreed that there should be no Justice Department investigations, that the president believes they should look forward, not backward. The next day and for the next week, Robert Gibbs continuously emphasized that should be true. Jane Mayer and Charlie Savage both reported that Emanuel and other White House officials were pummeling Eric Holder behind the scenes over the fact that he hadn't yet foreclosed the possibility of all investigations. It was continuous White House interference in the decisions by the Justice Department about whether or not to prosecute people. This has always been one of the most extreme and incontrovertible signs of corruption. The interference on the part of the White House, political interference with decisions of who should and should not be prosecuted. Remember, the entire scandal of Alberto Gonzalez and Karl Rove was that they were trying to pressure the Justice Department to prosecute certain people who were Democrats and to shield other people who were Republicans from prosecution. They were interfering, and they fired the U.S. attorneys who refused to carry out their orders. That was the big scandal, that what they were doing was compromising the integrity and the independence of the Justice Department. As you say, that was Richard Nixon's big scandal. The Saturday Night Massacre was he tried to direct the Attorney General to interfere in the investigations of the special prosecutor, and rather than do so, the Attorney General resigned because it was such an offensive idea that the White House could interfere with decisions on the part of the Justice Department about prosecutions. That is exactly what the White House for months did. Was they tried to interfere with the decision of the Justice Department about who should and should not be prosecuted when it came to Bush-era crimes. Scott Horton at Harper's reported that top-level Justice Department officials were furious that Rahm Emanuel and Robert Gibbs were publicly doing this. And Obama finally had to come out and give an interview in which he said, look, this isn't for me to decide. It's for the Justice Department to decide. But everybody knows, the record is very clear, that Holder was continuously pressured by White House officials. And you're absolutely right. Aside from how corrupt the decision itself was not to prosecute these war criminals, the process by which it was done, namely White House interference with the Justice Department, is something that liberals for decades literally have long said is one of the worst things that you can do.
And in fact, we saw, I mean, once this bar is lowered, we saw, and I don't know, you know, I haven't seen enough reporting on the inner workings of this, but, you know, the intense pressure that was applied not just by the DOJ on U.S. state attorneys to sign on to that financial fraud deal, the mortgage fraud deal, but also the advocacy from HUD, which is clearly part of the administration. We're talking about a cabinet member there. Sort of joining in that chorus. It just seems to me that that line of demarcation has been broken down severely, and it because you have that corruption of the process, it presents all sorts of problems going forward in the future for more corruption of that process and coming out of the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it does more than anything else is that it makes clear that the White House is devoted, and not just in a theoretical way, but in a passionate, steadfast way, to guaranteeing that the nation's top-level political and financial elites will not be prosecuted for their crimes. And the reason that's so remarkable is that the very first time that President Obama announced that he was running for president, then Senator Obama, in 2007, in that very first speech where he announced his candidacy, the second or third paragraph, he declared that the, quote, era of Scooter Libby justice would be over. And of course, the idea of Scooter Libby justice is that if you're sufficiently well connected politically, that even when you get caught committing crimes, or in the case of Libby, are convicted of committing crimes, you will be protected from punishments that ordinary Americans are routinely subjected to. And it isn't just political elites, it is financial elites as well. Not only has there not been a single Wall Street executive convicted in connection with either the 2008 financial crisis or the mortgage fraud crisis, the Obama administration has continuously applied pressure, as you said, on state attorneys general to hop on board with the settlement that will basically sweep it all under the rug. And the message that is sent is one of lawlessness for elites, and it is one that this administration has been very, very enthusiastic about embracing.
Glenn Greenwald, author of With Liberty and Justice for Some, and of course, writing daily at salon.com. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Sam. Bye.